Well, we certainly want to thank everyone for being here today. We are here to celebrate and to honor an American hero, a veteran, a good friend of mine and his family who are here today, a member of the 442nd Military Intelligence Service, a member of the Armed Forces serving in World War II. We'll get to more of that in just a moment. We have a distinguished panel of dignitaries here today who will be speaking of George and his service and his career. First thing I would like to do is I'd like to call up a member of the family who will start us with an invocation. And Emmy has told me a million times how to pronounce his last name, and I'm going to mess it up. I've got Nishimura down pat, but here he is. We'd like to ask, if you don't mind, to stand for just a moment, and we'll have a brief word of prayer to get ourselves started. I'd like to introduce you to Steve Majek.
I forget how to pronounce it myself sometimes, so that's okay. My friends, for this day, let us pray. We gather together in this place with gratitude in our hearts. We are thankful for God's gift of freedom. We are thankful for the men and women of the armed forces who respond to the call to protect that freedom. War is unfortunate. War costs lives. And over the course of history, heroic measures have been taken to avoid conflict. Soldiers have left home and country in order to serve as a presence across the world, a presence that encourages and maintains peace. Where conflict has proven necessary, we are grateful that so many proud warriors have risen up, willing to make any sacrifice in order to protect our God-given desire for freedom and security. Today we find ourselves in debt to George Nishimura. George rose up. George defended his country. And for that, we are grateful. And so today we honor George. We ask God to continue to grant him the blessing of health, the love of his family. George, may God bless you on this day and always. And may God continue to bless each and every one of us with freedom, with peace, and with God's love. Amen.
Amen. All right, you may be seated. Thank you. I will tell you that when we began this journey to have such a ceremony today, it started over a conversation about discovery and the discovery of the honor and recognition that this country bestowed on this fighting unit of the 442nd. It is a storied unit. If you are history buffs, if you've served, you know what I'm talking about. But as the family and I were talking about how we could honor George in this way, it just sort of grew legs, and I am honored and blessed to be a small part of what's going on here today. We have a distinguished group of people here who will recognize George on behalf of the city, the county, and the country, and we appreciate all of you being here. We do have a number of folks we would like to thank. First of all, I want to get some thank yous out of the way for our good friends here at F&M Bank. Sammy Stewart, Fred Landis, Condor Smalley, and their staff. Is this not a beautiful place? Can I get a nice round of applause for this? I have been associated with this bank for many years as friends, as customers, as anything that they've needed me to do, and vice versa, and they've just been wonderful to work with, and we appreciate them letting us use this room here today. When I started contacting folks who would like to be a part of this event today, there were a lot of people to thank, and trust me, I bothered a lot of people, and which just my very nature is to bother people, so it just worked out well for me to do that. But I want to thank certainly all the folks at City Hall. Jennifer Rawls, Mary McMillan, and Charlie Kuhn, the Chief of Staff of the city. We want to make sure we thank them for all their work. Elizabeth Black, County Mayor Carolyn Bowers, City Mayor Kim McDonough, they were all very helpful. We'll introduce you to some folks here representing both the city and the county who helped us today. And certainly all the folks at the state level, Mark Green's office, Joe Pitt's office, and I can't thank Pete Maraldi enough, who is the civilian protocol for Fort Campbell. He was here earlier. He's probably disappeared somewhere, but I can't thank him enough for being able to help us have our distinguished guests here today to represent the Commanding General in this event. It's just been amazing. And if I've forgotten anyone, I apologize. But I also want to thank the members of the media who are here, certainly Clarksville Online. Philip Gray is here from the Lead Chronicle, who I have a lot of respect for Philip, and certainly glad that he's here. He spent some time with George the other night, and if he's like me, he remembers that George's place is always hot. George keeps it toasty. That's what comes with always not wearing shoes and going barefoot. And George welcomed us into his home, and we appreciate that. I love George Nishimura. I met him several years ago. He's just such a delightful man, and we're just so excited that all of you are here. We also would like to recognize that many of the, in fact, most all the families here, I think we're missing just one child or one grandchild here today, if I'm not mistaken. And if I make a mistake, I know I'll be corrected. But I just want to try to take a moment and talk a little bit about George's family, who is here today. There are 5 children and 11 grandchildren to George Nishimura. And they are all here, I believe, with the exception of one, I believe, who is at school today. But I want to recognize Jim Nishimura and his daughters, Jamie and Carly, who are here. Can you raise your hand or stand up real quick? There you are. That's okay. I won't embarrass you. I probably already embarrassed you. Yeah, they'll get in the car and they'll say, Dad, you said they were going to see my name. But we're so grateful that you're here, and we're so grateful for your family and for George. Emmy and Bo Lejeune are here. Emmy is George's daughter, along with Andrew, and I think Andrew and Justin, are they both here? Yeah. And Jacob is the one who's not here. He is at University of Tennessee, I believe. And so Rachel and Allison Lejeune are here, the twins, and we appreciate them being here. Joanne and Steve Majecki, and I know I probably butchered his name again, but Joanne is the daughter, George's daughter, I believe. Where are you? You want to raise your hand? Where are you going? Oh, yeah, of course, I met you all. You were giving me orders like your sister was. David and Lisa Nishimura are here. They came from Baldwin, Missouri, along with Joanne and Steve, who drove from Baldwin, Missouri. Doug Nishimura, where is he at? There he is, and who also drove from Baldwin, Missouri. Is that same St. Louis? Is it Baldwin County? Yeah. I think. So, huh?
St. Louis County.
St. Louis County, okay. Well, I don't know where Baldwin, Missouri is. Maybe that's where I'm supposed to go. It's St. Louis, St. Louis. So we're so grateful you're here. Devin is here, I believe. Yes, thank you. And so how about a nice hand for George's family? They're all here. Did I miss anyone?
You missed our kids. Max, Mike, and Josie. Josie, Max, and Isaac.
Oh, there they are. Josie, Max, and Isaac.
Leave your hands.
Isaac, I have heard so much about you.
I'm not Isaac, I'm Max.
I didn't say you were Isaac. You just started talking to me.
Now you're talking to me.
All right, well, we're grateful. We thank all of you for being here. George Kazuo Nishimura. Now, I've pronounced his name a million times this week, and I've been asked a million times just today. That's why we always call him George. George Nishimura. Yeah, many of you are familiar with the story of the 442nd. If you have read any of the articles that we posted this week at Clarksville Online, it barely touches the surface, really scratching any of the surface of the life of this amazing person. You know, growing up in Hawaii, watching the bombing, watching the waves of attack from the Japanese at a time when, you know, they were curious as to why was this happening, and then to serve, to join, to volunteer. It's just an amazing story as I read his handwritten account of his life. It just is amazing, and I could barely put it into the words that I was able to do this week, because it really doesn't do much justice to when you read about the trip across the pond, the boat ride across the Pacific, a week, you know, the weeks it took the train to get to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, you know, the times in the 40s to be in Mississippi as a Japanese American. It's just an amazing story. And then if you've done your research or if you're familiar with this particular unit and all of the various companies of the 442nd, it's just an amazing, amazing story. 21 Medal of Honor winners at last count have been awarded to members of this unit. In 2010, the Congressional Gold Medal was awarded to the 442nd and the members of the Military Intelligence Service to all the units there. And the reason we are here today is that because of George's field promotion, he was left off the original rolls for that award when Congress and the Senate unanimously approved the award. So we're here today to make sure that we in the world recognize his service and his accomplishments with our country and for our country and the sacrifices he made. And so we again thank all of you for being here. Before I start to introduce our guests who are here, and they will speak, and certainly they have brought tidings of good joy with them, and we appreciate that. I would like to read something. I had sent out some emails to all of our congressional delegation, our U.S. congressmen and senators and so forth. I also contacted the delegation from Hawaii. As you know, George is from Hawaii, and my wife, who tells me everything I'm supposed to do, said, you should contact the Hawaiian delegation, which I did. And I heard back from, and I don't have the official certificate that they have sent, but I did make a copy of what we received from the United States Senate, a message from U.S. Senator Matsi Korono from the great state of Hawaii. Aloha! Welcome to the family and friends attending the celebration honoring George Nishimura. At a time when the loyalty of all Japanese Americans was questioned, Nisei from across Hawaii enlisted to defend our freedoms overseas. In 2010, their loyalty was finally recognized when President Barack Obama signed legislation to award the Congressional Gold Medal to our soldiers. It was a great moment for our country and our veterans. I'm humbled by the courage and the heart of our Nisei veterans. Mr. Nishimura's dedication and bravery as a member of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team and the Military Intelligence Service inspires us all. The Congressional Gold Medal ensures that the acts of valor will be remembered for generations. I join all of you in thanking Mr. Nishimura for his service. Signed, Senator Matsi K. Hirono from the great state of Hawaii. And so we will give you a copy of this, and then the official document will come, and we'll pass that along. We appreciate that. As I mentioned, we have several folks here today representing the city and the county and the state and our country and our military that I would like to introduce you to. Before we get to our presentation of the award and the honor that has been bestowed on George. Representing our county government today, Mayor Carolyn Bowers was unable to attend. I would like to introduce to you today Mr. Jerry Rivers. He is the Director of Veteran Services for Montgomery County. Jerry Rivers, please.
On mine. There again, I want to say good afternoon to each and every one of you. And to express my sincere sadness and gladness of your 90th birthday. What a fitting time to celebrate. As we move forward, Mayor Bowers, on behalf of the county government, sends her greetings and wishes that she could be there, but scheduling events her. We would like to take time to recognize all of our veterans that serve, especially in those times of hard times. As we reflect back on December 7th, 1941, it was a time indeed that lived in infamy. We know what you must have been facing as a young man of 18. As we move forward in a late hour, but you never forgot, we'll never forget what you and your comrades did in the defense of this great nation. And on the behalf of the great nation and Montgomery County, we appreciate you. And we'd like to recognize and honor you by bestowing a proclamation from our Mayor, Mayor Carolyn Bowers. And it reads,
whereas on December 7th, 1941, George Nishimura watched the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor from the rooftop of a garage where he was working at the young age of 18. And whereas, 1 year later, after the formation of a separate unit comprised of all Japanese American soldiers, also known as the Second Generation, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team was approved. And whereas over 10,000 men volunteered, only 2,600 were accepted, 2 of whom were George Nishimura and his brother. And whereas, on March 3rd, 1943, George boarded a ship heading for Camp Shelby, Mississippi for basic training. While there, the soldiers were tested for language skills in Japanese. Because Mr. Nishimura had attended Japanese school as a child, he tested very highly and was sent to Camp Savage, Minnesota to the Military Intelligence Service Language School. And whereas Mr. Nishimura graduated from the MIS school and was sent to Australia, then the Philippines, and finally to Japan as an interpreter for the United States Army. And whereas during Mr. Nishimura's military service, he was promoted from enlisted T4 to a second lieutenant, where he helped serve until he was discharged in July of 1946. And whereas today, we honor George Nishimura for his service and dedication to his country, and we are proud that he is being presented with a bronze copy of the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award the nation can bestow. Now therefore, Carolyn P. Bowers, Mayor of Montgomery County, Tennessee, does recognize and applaud George Nishimura for his dedication and valor while serving his country. On behalf of the citizens of Montgomery County, I hereby proclaim this 22nd day of February 2013 as George Nishimura Day in honor of his 90th birthday and wish him good health and happiness in the years to come. Carolyn Bowers, Mayor.
Sir, please salute.
And thank you so much on behalf of representing Montgomery County Mayor Carolyn Bowers. We thank you for being with us. And we appreciate your work. Now, representing Mayor Kim McMillan and the City of Clarksville, our Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. James Lewis. James.
Hi, good evening. Aristotle once said, "You will never be anything in the world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind next to honor." I am fortunate today to be here for the opportunity to recognize both honor and courage and the heroic acts of Mr. George Nishimura. I am not going to make a speech because, frankly, no words could be accurately describe the difficulties Mr. Nishimura's life and the service he made for his community and our nation. So I simply would say thank you. Thank you for all that you did during the most terrible times of our nation. And thank you for things that without you thought about any reward or glory. Thank you for reminding us how important it is to have courage, valor, and honor. On behalf of Mayor Kim McMillan, the Clarksville City Council, and the citizens of Clarksville, I thank you for and congratulate you as you receive this much deserved award. Thank you, sir.
One of the people I talked to who was very helpful was a young lady in Joe's office when we first announced that we were looking for folks to come back to George on this day. And she was a delightful lady, but she talked so fast, I swear I don't know her name. I can't remember her name. Joe can probably tell you when he gets here. But I will say that Joe Pitts was the very first person to respond to wanting to be here at this event today. So I apologize for getting the order out of whack for a moment. I was staring at Woody who kept waving at me for some reason. I probably mispronounced somebody's name along the way. But it's a great day, and certainly it's an honor to have our state representative, one of our state representatives here, Mr. Joe Pitts. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Hank, and good afternoon. What a joy it is to be here today representing the Tennessee General Assembly. There's an old saying, some are born to greatness, others have it thrust upon them. And I was watching Mr. Nishimura as people were speaking, and he would rather be somewhere else honoring somebody else. So I know that you've had it thrust upon you today. But happy birthday. I hardly feel worthy to stand in your company today, sir, and thank you for your service to our country. When Hank began this process, Senator Green, Speaker Pro Tem Johnson, and Representative Tidwell and I, the Montgomery County delegation, wanted to make sure that we did something very fitting, hardly adequate, but fitting, to represent and to honor your service to our country and to mark this momentous day. We have a House Joint Resolution that was passed by the House of Representatives and the State Senate, and if you will pardon me, I would like to just read it because it's lengthy, but considering the sacrifice this man has made and the length of time he's waited, he can wait just a little bit longer, as can we. So if you'll pardon me, I'd like to read it to you. House Joint Resolution 86 by Representative Pitts, Speaker Pro Tem Curtis Johnson, Representative John Tidwell, and Senator Mark Green. A resolution to recognize George Nishimura upon his receipt of the Congressional Gold Medal for his military service during World War II. Whereas our nation was conceived by individuals who were willing to sacrifice their personal safety and concerns to ensure that individual and collective freedom, and the volunteer state is especially proud to honor these many men and women who performed above and beyond the call of duty. And whereas during World War II, extraordinary efforts were required to provide for the Americans of foreign descent to exert their patriotism and bravery as members of the United States Armed Forces. And whereas George Nishimura of Montgomery County is one such person who volunteered and served from 1942 until 1946, when he was honorably discharged at the very respectable rank of second lieutenant. Whereas as a young man living in Hawaii in 1941, 18-year-old George Nishimura witnessed firsthand the December 7th attack on Pearl Harbor. So deeply was he moved by what he observed that dark and wretched day that his soul was stirred to patriot action. But alas, his Japanese heritage barred his participation in the military, at least at that time. And whereas presidential action by Franklin Delano Roosevelt 1 year later brought about the formation of a special military unit comprised solely of Japanese American soldiers, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, giving credence and credibility to the physical endurance, intellectual prowess, and unique cultural skills they possessed, which proved to be valuable assets in wartime efforts. And whereas Mr. Nishimura and one brother were accepted into the 442nd, and he was recruited into the Military Intelligence Service Language School in 1943. Upon completion of that training, he moved into the Pacific Theater and worked in multiple locations as an interpreter for the United States Army. And whereas in recognition of the valiant contributions of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, also known as the NISI, and second generation soldiers, the United States Congress bestowed the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award the nation can bestow, collectively upon the unit, the 100th Infantry Battalion, and those who served in the Military Intelligence Service. The award ceremony was held on November 2nd, 2011. And whereas due to an inadvertent error that occurred in conjunction with a battlefield promotion Mr. Nishimura received, his name was dropped from the roster, causing a lack of notification and his precluding participation in the ceremony at that time. Whereas George Nishimura has a history of superlative military service for the United States and is fully deserving of recognition for that service and receipt of the same bronze replica copy of the Congressional Gold Medal that his brothers in arms previously received. And whereas on February 22nd of this year, just today, Mr. Nishimura will celebrate his 90th anniversary of his birth. And on that day, some 67 years after his military service had ended, he shall receive the honorary recognition of his grateful nation in the form of his Congressional Gold Medal replica. And whereas it is fitting and appropriate that this General Assembly should pause to fondly reflect on the long life that has been well lived by George Nishimura, giving particular reflection to the glass ceiling shattered by this fine young man and his comrades who, given the opportunity, proved the devout patriotism and courage of Japanese Americans to protect and defend their chosen homeland. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 108th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, the Senate concurring that we congratulate George Nishimura upon his receipt of the Congressional Gold Medal for his military service in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team unit organized specifically for the service of Japanese Americans during World War II, signed by the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the Senate, our Governor, Governor Bill Haslam, and all the members of the Montgomery County delegation, and Mr. Nishimura, on behalf of the grateful state, it is our honor, Senator Green, and my honor, to present to you this House Charter Resolution. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate that. Once we started researching this story, and everyone that we had talked to about the history of this unit, the history of this young man here, it was amazing to me to see the excitement and to feel the energy of people who were so familiar with this unit and the service that Mr. Nishimura had given and others like him. And I just sort of fed off of that, and you can feel some of that today. And I know the family is feeling all that today. But Joe, Mr. Pitts, hit it on the head. You would definitely rather be somewhere else. Well, we're grateful for George, and we're not quite done yet. We're just all excited to be a part of this event today. So now, I want to make sure I glance over so I don't have a brain freeze and misintroduce someone again, because we're very grateful to have representatives from Marshall Blackburn's office today. I spoke with Congressman Blackburn a couple of weeks ago. I called her about the passing of her father, and she mentioned George right away and was very sad that she could not be here. But we're very grateful to have her representatives here today who have had the delight to meet for the first time. So now, if you don't mind, I would like to introduce Mr. Bo Patton, representing Marshall Blackburn, our U.S. Congressman.
Thank you, Hank, for letting us be here today. Mr. Nishimura, to your family, thank you. It's a great honor to be here, both Ms. Parker and myself, and Congressman Marshall Blackburn. It's truly an honor to be a part of this ceremony today in great company with some of these fine leaders. I see some of our servicemen here today. I thank you for your service, and thank you to our past servicemen and those who continue to serve our men and women in combat. Thank you very much for what you do. I have from our office a matter of, it's a congressional record. This will become an official congressional business, so I will read it as follows. Mr. Speaker, there are sacred obligations all citizens have to their community: to participate, to serve, and to leave their home a more prosperous place than they found it. It is a certain truth that George Nishimura has lived a life in honor of these sacred obligations. On December 7, 1941, an 18-year-old watched the second wave of the attack on Pearl Harbor. When President Roosevelt approved the formation of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, George immediately volunteered for service. Along with one of his brothers, George arrived at Camp Shelby, Mississippi in early 1943. By July of that same year, George had graduated from the Military Intelligence Service. Over the next 3 years, he would serve in World War II in Australia, the Philippines, and Japan as an interpreter for the United States Army. I ask my colleagues to join with me as we honor George Nishimura as he receives his Congressional Gold Medal. The highest civilian medal the nation can bestow is an honor worthy of such a remarkable citizen. Marshall Blackburn, Member of Congress.
George, you bring your Kroger bag with you today? We're not done yet. You ought to hand those back to Bo and let him hang on. Bo was dying to do something here today, so we give him something. All right, thank you very much, Bo. Bo Patton and Woody, we appreciate you all being here from Marshall Blackburn's office. As I mentioned earlier, my friend Pete Maraldi at Fort Campbell, I recognized that I'd forgotten that we were friends on Facebook, and I was really struggling to try to get through Fort Campbell. And I don't have the ins and outs that some people do on base. And I frantically contacted Pete, who just has been so great in bringing one of our guests here today, and I really want to thank him for that. So I'd like to introduce to you today a young man who is here to represent the Commanding General at Fort Campbell. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about him and where he's from and so forth and so on because, well, quite frankly, he told me not to. He said that we were here to honor George Nishimura and wanted to spend time focusing on George and not him. So he has rank, and I follow orders. So would you please take just a moment and welcome, representing the Commanding General, Mr. General James McConville, I'm sorry. This is Lieutenant Colonel Richard Ryan Coyle, who is the commander of the 717th Cav Unit at Fort Campbell.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Nishimura, family, friends, and distinguished guests. Thank you for attending today's ceremony. This presentation is long overdue, and it's a distinct honor to be here to witness the presentation of the Congressional Gold Medal, one of the highest awards bestowed by Congress. After a unanimous vote in both the United States House of Representatives and the Senate, the Congressional Gold Medal was presented collectively to the U.S. Army's 100th Infantry Battalion, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and the Nisei soldiers who served in the military intelligence service during World War II. Mr. Nishimura joins the ranks of esteemed individuals such as George Washington, Ulysses S. Grant, and Thomas Edison, just to name a few that have received this prestigious award. For the units I mentioned and the soldiers that filled their ranks, this award serves as recognition of their patriotism and unbreakable devotion to their nation. With distrust in our ranks, they served selflessly and fought with extreme valor. Unfortunately, at the time this unit was presented the award, Mr. Nishimura was not at the ceremony. But we are here today to honor his selfless service to a grateful nation. On behalf of Major General McConville and Fort Campbell, I would like to say thank you for your service and epitomizing the Army values that held our force together then and still holds it together today. People are our Army, and I'm amazed at how the communities surrounding Fort Campbell always rally around our people and our families. And it truly provides strength, whether we're here or we're abroad. To our family, friends, and distinguished guests, again, I want to say thank you for taking the time to witness and participate in the ceremony. And I would also like to extend birthday wishes to Mr. Nishimura as you're about to turn 90 years young. Happy birthday and aerosol.
Thank you very much. All right. Now, we're about ready to finish up. You can go home, which I know you're ready to do. George Nishimura. This young man needs no introduction, as most of our panel here today, and we do appreciate how excited Senator Mark Green was to be a part of this event today. And there are many reasons why he is so excited, and I'll let him explain that. He is certainly a distinguished military veteran. He is our state senator, and he will do the honors today as we're here to honor and show respect for George Nishimura and his service to our country. So please we welcome Senator Mark Green.
Thank you, Hank. It's absolutely an honor to be here today. Words can't describe the sentiment that I have, the pleasure this brings me, the honor that it is for me to be here. If you've ever spent time around a World War II veteran, it's pretty special. I had the experience of taking care of one in the ER one time. He was a gentleman that had nearly cut his arm off with a chainsaw accident. And this guy comes in, and he's an elderly gentleman, as you would expect. His arm is barely being held on by flesh and a little sinew. And I asked, as we're trying to stop the blood flow, you know, sir, I'm assuming this is a 10 out of 10 pain, as we do in healthcare. The guy goes, no, doc, this is a 5 out of 10. The only time I ever experienced 10 out of 10 pain was that last night in Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. The men and women of our greatest generation who went to war during World War II are special people. You think about World War II, what was it? Probably the most devastating act of humankind. In mankind's history, 60 million people died in that very brief period of time, 2.5% of the world's population. And these men and women who left and fought brought freedom back to the world. Before I go on, though, I want to just share a few thank yous for the people who are here to make this day special. Representative Pitts, thank you for coming. I'm just getting to know Joe, and he's a pretty special guy. And I have met very few people who love on veterans and soldiers in the way that Joe does. Thank you, sir, for being here. And Bo, thanks for coming to represent Congressman Blackburn. Congressman Blackburn's one of those gals who gets it. And she is a special resource to us, and she represents our community very well. And thank you for coming. Hank, you've done a marvelous job putting all this together. And I hope everyone's had an opportunity to read the stories this week that he's written about not only Mr. Nishimura, but the men and women, the men who stood with him in that unit, the 442nd. I'd like to thank the leadership of F&M Bank. Sammy, you guys do a great job serving the community with this room, and thank you for doing that. It really is special. It's a great place to do, a fitting place to do something like this. Lieutenant Colonel Coyle, thank you for representing the General. Thank you for your service to our country. I can tell by the ribbons on your chest there that you've been downrange and served the nation in combat, and we thank you and your family for their sacrifice. There are a lot of county commissioners here. Ron Sokol, Robert Lewis, Robert Nichols, thank you for your service to the community. Sergeant Major, City Councilman, Sir, Mr. Lewis, thank you. Thank you for being here. I also want to say a special thank you to a very dear friend of mine who's here, and who, interestingly enough, is the son-in-law of Mr. Nishimura. Bo Lejeune flew me into combat on many, many missions. And I can remember several conversations as it would get a little hairy. But thank you, Bo. Just great to see you again. Thank you for your service, too. You know, on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese, in a surprise and premeditated attack, bombed Pearl Harbor, killing 2,402 Americans. It was a devastating day. And as has already been said, reminding us of FDR's comments, a day that will live in infamy. Mr. Nishimura, as I understand, actually witnessed this, particularly the second wave of the attack, from on top of a garage. And if you've ever seen bombs fall from the sky and blow things up, it's an image that never leaves your brain. It's always there, like the first time when you see someone die. And I can only imagine what it was like to watch that. But I can't really imagine what it was like to be a Japanese American and know that it was Japanese who were dropping bombs that day on your new country, the country you had fallen in love with. In the aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor, a bitter and angry America took some actions that in the light of today seems inappropriate in the least. We held in internment camps Japanese Americans in what could really be called a captivity of sorts. Yet despite this injustice, many of these men, like Mr. Nishimura, volunteered to serve the nation, fight and die for the nation that had just placed essentially into captivity, as I said, their friends and family. Think about that. George Nishimura was one of the young men who joined the Coastal Guard, and then, as I understand it, it became the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. His stateside training, as has been said already, was at Camp Shelby, only about 30 minutes from where I grew up, I might add, and Congressman Blackburn as well. We're both from Mississippi. And then it was on to Minnesota for some additional language training, and then to the Pacific Theater to serve the nation. The 442nd would go on, as has already been said today, to be perhaps the nation's most decorated unit ever. Again, Japanese Americans fighting for a nation that they were loyal to despite what we had done. I'm completely moved by that. You know, as fellow soldiers, the fellow soldiers in this room can attest that combat, whether how intense it is, it's still that moment when you make the decision to go that's probably the most fear-producing, the most challenging. And whether you're a weatherman in some remote station somewhere, or you're in the foxhole on the forward edge of battle, you answered the call of duty to go. And it's for that, and for the act of service that we make this award today. The people of this generation, the greatest generation, are absolutely heroes. And Mr. Nishimura, you are indeed a hero, an American hero. The history of the Congressional Gold Medal has already been articulated, and I won't waste your time on that. 1776, the first one was given to George Washington. But it's interesting to me, and I will say this, what the citation, when you go to look at the history of the citation, the purpose of it, it says, for people who have made a lasting contribution to the history and culture of the United States of America. And that's what Mr. Nishimura has done. The history of the United States and the history of the world by the brave acts of men like himself. So, sir, if you would, please come forward, and I'd like to present you with the Congressional Gold Medal. I'd like to present you with this award. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you for recognizing that sacrifice still needs to be honored. And I know Mr. Nishimura would feel the same way. You honor him by being here, but you honor the concepts of what he stands for by being here. Thank you again, and by the way, happy birthday, sir. God bless you all. God bless this great state. You ready to go now? All right, that will conclude our ceremony today. I would like to remind all of you that you're welcome to stay. There are refreshments here. We would invite all of you to stay and chat with George, get to know him, introduce yourself to him while you're here. I cannot thank these people enough for being here today. Right on down the line, I would like for you all to give them a nice round of applause. These people, if you think you're busy, these people are busy. And I am so grateful to all of them for being a part of this ceremony and being here today. So that will conclude our ceremony as we remember a great Army man and a veteran and just a delightful person. And I've had the pleasure of knowing George for years, and I hope you all will take the time to get to know him while you're here. So congratulations, George Nishimura. God bless you, and happy birthday. Thank you all for coming.
George, you were recognized today and received the Congressional Gold Medal. You know, what do you remember most about your service with the 442nd in World War II?
Well, the thing that I remember as far as the 442 was the basic training that we went through. And of course, in the 442, they had the artillery unit called the 522nd Field Artillery Battalion, and that's where I was. I wasn't in the infantry, and we had a pretty good group of guys, because those that were selected for the artillery, were, I would say, some of the cream of the crop of the 442 because they were, most of them, I always say, were high school and above as far as education went. And that probably resulted in the fact that in when they went to the European theater, they were in demand by other American divisions to join in with them to do the artillery firing because they were both fast and accurate in their job, and they were the ones that went into Germany, and one of the things that they did was they saw Dachau, the concentration camp, and they were the first one to release the PWs that were incarcerated there. And as far as the work that I was doing in the Pacific, I don't consider myself as being exceptional because some of the fellows that I was with, there were groups of 10 that were selected to go to the frontline areas at the division level and do the combat interpreting, just like it you probably saw in the movie that Navajo Indians talkers, you know, someone similar to that.
You actually witnessed part of the attacks on Pearl Harbor. You know, what went through your mind, you know, as you saw the planes coming in?
Well, I thought it was incredible that something that could happen. Of course, it was what they call a sneak attack, and Americans on the islands weren't prepared to do any retaliation initially anyway, because there were a few Japanese planes that were shot down. One of the planes that was shot down after strafing and bombing Wheeler was one that crashed not too far from where I lived.
You know, obviously, you know, America is not proud of, you know, what they did to the Japanese Americans after, you know, the attacks on Pearl Harbor. Do you think that the country's gone far enough in you know, saying that they're sorry for what happened to the Japanese citizens?
Well, I think they have, in the sense that I know that back in the 80s, the government not reimbursed but gave a certain amount of money to the people who were taken into those camps, and people who were working with me in the mapping agency for the government, they were given an additional 3 years on their retirement, so they were able, some of them were able to retire earlier than.
How important do you think it is that America remembers, you know, what happened, you know, both to the Japanese Americans, you know, and during World War II today?
Well, I think that the fact that something like what happened in the World War II should never happen again, and especially to people along the West Coast who were incarcerated in those relocation, so-called relocation camps, and you know, I think those guys that came and to join the 442 were tremendous guys, because for what they went through and what happened to their families. And they were all American citizens, except for the parents, of course. They were Japanese citizens, but the kids and all were born here and raised here, and they shouldn't have been placed in a place like that.
How does it feel being recognized today for what both you and the guys of the 442nd did?
Oh, I think it's tremendous that what they did. I didn't expect anything of this sort to happen, because to us, I think most of us thought that it was simply our duty to go and defend this country. It wasn't something that we expected that we'd be recognized like what happened.
How did it, did I guess, how did you feel when the unit was recognized, which you were left out due to the clerical issue?
Well, that's I really can't say much about it, because the thing that I think happened was that, you see, when I got back to the islands after serving in the Far East in Japan and got back to get discharged, I went directly to the university there and had little association with some of the veterans of 442. And at that time, the 2 years that I was back in Hawaii, at that time I left in 48 again, but the organization, as far as the 442 was concerned, or the MIS, they weren't as active as they became later on, so that there was very little that I could do, but like joining up with the MIS group or the 442 group. So I think that's what happened, and somewhere along the line they missed.
And how did it feel being, for that to be fixed today?
Oh, I'm glad that they did recognize today, and I think reason for that is because my daughter, Emmy, she did a lot of the contact work, and both with the people in Hawaii, with the 442, and was able to get me this gold medal. And there she.
With the recognition today, you had a little bit of a surprise, when you came in for the ceremony. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was especially surprised to see all those dignitaries, and especially when they had declared today as my day or whatever. It was really out of this world, and I didn't expect anything to this extent.
Now, I guess the last question is going to be, is if you could go back, right now and say anything at all to the guys of the 442 that you served with during World War II, what would it be?
Well, I kind of miss being with them, and if I had the opportunity, I would have liked to renew the camaraderie that we had, and of course it's getting to the point where today there are only few of us left. And I know that the number each year and each month or each day have been dwindling to the point where there are few of us left. And in March, the 442 is having a 70th anniversary get together in Hawaii, and we're planning to go over there and spend a week.
All right, Mr. Nishimura, just thank you for letting me be a part of this ceremony today. And truly, on behalf of Major General McConville, it was an honor for one, just for the division to be able to represent the Army as you were being recognized for all that you did so many years ago, and for all that you have done to facilitate the great country that we have right now, and the fact that it is the way it is. It's because of men like you that served during World War II and have served since then. And truly, all we can do is thank you, and words can't express enough the gratitude that we all expressed. And once again, happy birthday, and continue. We just hope to continue to see you for many more years to come.
What an honor to be in the presence of greatness. And George Nishimura is a great, great American. And it's one of the great things about doing this job as state representative is you get to meet people like him who are unassuming, humble spirits. Yet they walk among us and they've served their country and they continue to be great patriots. So it's an honor to be here today.
I am absolutely honored to be here today and to present the Congressional Gold Medal to Mr. George Nishimura. You know, if you think about it, I'll probably never do this again in my lifetime. That's how special this is. The highest award given to a civilian in our country. A man who went to war as a Japanese American, despite many of his family and friends being interred in Japanese detention camps. The sacrifices that they made, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, one of the most decorated units in American history. Great Americans, fiercely loyal to the United States, fighting for our freedom and the freedom of the world. It's pretty special, and I'm really lucky and honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
I'm Hank Bonecutter for Clarksville Online. Today we have celebrated the life and service of George Nishimura, a decorated member of the 442nd Military Intelligence Service. Just as we get to his 90th birthday, he has received a bronze replica of his Congressional Gold Medal, and we've had a number of dignitaries here to celebrate his service and certainly his life. You can read all about George Nishimura at Clarksville Online, a series of articles we have posted there, and certainly you can get information on the 442nd if you're a history buff. It's there online. But what a decorated group of soldiers, and what an interesting time for George Nishimura, who today we have honored with his bronze replica of the Congressional Gold Medal. We want to thank F&M Bank and all our friends who were here today to help us celebrate his service. I'm Hank Bonecutter for Clarksville Online.